Let's talk.
Giles Brown.
The Mbappé project, making a superstar. As the two dominant talents of 21st century football, Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, near the end of their careers, one man is set to take their place at the very top of the game. He's the captain of France's national team, Kylian Mbappé, of course. Those of you who are Real Madrid supporters, Hala Madrid, will know the man, of course, and the gentleman who has written a new book about Philippe Auclair, about Mbappé, is Philippe Auclair. Philippe joins me live on the line now. Philippe, good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
Good to have you with us. Explain a little bit about your background and why you have written this book on Mbappé.
I'm a French football writer who's been living in London for a very long time, too long to mention, really. And I write books. I wrote a biography of Eric Cantona, another biography of TRE. I think most people would know me in Britain and elsewhere, mostly for my investigative work. I tend to look at the dark side of football. And I'm doing that for The Guardian, for example, in England, but especially for the Norwegian magazine Yosimba. And so that book about Kylian Mbappé is not a biography of the player. I say that straight away to avoid any confusion, misunderstanding or whatever, even though there are, of course, loads of biographical detail in the book. It is not, he did this and he did that and he scored and everybody was happy and he became a world champion and it's fantastic. It's not at all that kind of book.
So it's called the Mbappé Project. Is this almost like, because, you know, I'm of a generation that will always think of France's football as Les Bleus, you know, the team that won, of course, that brilliant World Cup in the 90s, and the you know, Zidane and you know, the way it brought together France in the 90s. It seemed like we were going in a positive direction, all races, all colours, all creeds, fantastic. But this is much more. Mbappé is a business, is a project. I mean, explain a little bit about, is this the structured making of a football superstar?
Yeah, I mean, the fact is he's a phenomenal talent. Some people would say a generational talent. I mean, he's already the most lethal striker that French football has ever produced. And so there is this amazing talent, which was obvious for a very young age. But what, for me, makes him stand out even more is the fact that his whole career has been built ever since he was a very, very young boy, with one goal in mind, which is to make him the number one global superstar in world football. I know this sounds crazy, but it's been like this forever. He got his first sponsorship deal when he was only 8 years old with Nike. That's very young. I know thereafter. Yeah, that's pretty young. And every single step of the way is being earmarked as not one to follow, but the one who was going to make it. And what is extraordinary is how his entourage and himself have structured absolutely everything in his career around that aim. It's certainly unique. I mean, no other player has ever done that. Even Ronaldo and Messi, you know, they were already established as winners on the football field before the brand was really kick-started. In the case of Mbappé, he already had a sports lawyer, and the very best, Delphine Verheiden, when he was only 15. He had trademarked his name and his goal celebrations before he'd been a French international. So everything was done from a very, very early age. And with this one thing in mind, we've got to keep control of things. We've got to stick to the plan. We've got to stick to the project. And that's what they've done. And thanks to his phenomenal talent, but also his phenomenal attention to detail and the care with which they've been building his career is nearly there now.
But the thing is, Philippe, I mean, I can understand it had he been a promising lawyer at the age of 8, or he'd been a promising journalist like ourselves at the age of 8, because you kind of know where that progression goes. If you do these things, then this thing will happen. Competitive sport, international sport, a mistimed tackle, a slip, can ruin a whole career. And you know, sporting history is full of people who were wonderful at under 15 or under 20, and yet when it comes to the big leagues, the promise fizzles out. It dies. So it was an incredible risk. And we're not talking, he wasn't being sponsored by, I don't know, a boot manufacturer from Lyon or something. He was being sponsored by Nike, for goodness sake. I mean, how on earth does Team Mbappé get Nike interested in this? And he's not a South American. He's not a poster boy in terms of good looking sort of Johnny Depp with football boots. You know, he comes from an immigrant family, you know, in France. So explain a little bit about that background.
It's the talent. He was always playing in teams of players who were 2 to 3 years older than he was, and he looked like a shrimp compared to them, and a small shrimp. And but he was still able to do things that nobody else was able to do. So, and everybody was aware of that. Obviously, his parents were, Nike were, but so were all the scouts, recruiters, agents that you could shake a stick at. He was really the one they were coveting. And you're absolutely right in terms of it's quite crazy to think that the project took wing when anything can happen at any time. And to be honest, there were moments where things didn't go so well for him when he was, like, for example, when he joined Monaco to start with. He had a couple of difficult years there because his youth coaches didn't see eye to eye with his behavior. I mean, not his discipline, but the fact that he was not behavior on the pitch, that is, that he was not defending, for example, which he still doesn't do, as all Real Madrid fans will be aware of. But he managed to go through that. And I take example in the book of one of his former teammates, Kevin Jean-Augustin, who, when they were in the under-17 and under-19 team, was considered to be an even better player than him. And I think almost no football fan today would remember who, Augustin was. Yeah. And because what you mentioned happened to him, as in things didn't quite work out, quite a few bad choices, career choices, life choices, then long COVID, and the player is nowhere to be seen today. It's a tragedy. In his case, what they did is that it was a gamble up to a point, but it was a gamble. They just wanted to make sure that all the conditions would be met to make sure that whatever opportunity he would be given, he could make the most of. And so that's why, for example, he had, when he was at school, he went to a private school. His parents, by the way, yes, do come from immigrant backgrounds, but they are not poor. They never were poor. They were actually what I would call, lower middle class, comfortable lower middle class. And he was given private tuition in foreign languages because he would need foreign languages when he would become a professional footballer. Because academically he was very good, very disruptive, but very, very good. And he was, he went to Clairefontaine, which is, football's top school for the children from the Paris region, and then he moved to a club well known for Monaco, well known for the way that it took care of its young players. Then he didn't go to Real Madrid, even though he'd visited Real Madrid when he was only 12 years old. He'd been invited by the club and by Zinedine Zidane, and turned it down, if you can believe it, because they had to follow the project, the roadmap that they had set up to make it a success. And they were absolutely right. I mean, it is incredibly, it's unique. It's almost actually incomprehensible because, as you say, football is also, that so much is down to chance. As you say, it can be a mistimed tackle. Yep. It can be simply the fact that you don't get the right opportunities when you're between the ages of 18 and 21, which are crucial for a young player, that suddenly you're with a coach who is not the right kind of coach for you, that you might have problems in your private life, and so on and so forth. But in this case, everything is about let's minimize the risks, let's maximize the opportunities.
I mean, the thing that strikes me is the fact that if you think about, because my preferred sport is Formula One, is motor racing. And if you think about the current world champion, Lando Norris, his father is a finance, is a money man. His mother's Belgian, and they invested millions in opening the doors for him. And they said, and his mother said, but we made sacrifice for him. He didn't really have a childhood. We were always racing. Even though they're, when you say they come from immigrant stock, I mean, I'm an immigrant in Spain, for example. But what we're saying here is that even if you are a comfortable middle-class family, it's still, you just don't knock on a door and like you say, come on, please come in. So there must be a determination. I mean, is it a father pushing? Is a mother pushing? Are they all deciding that, right, we will put our lives on hold for this, and then it becomes and to get presumably a business manager in. I mean, how do you get and to get Zuzou involved as well, or at least aware of the if it was a film, they'd say he was creating a buzz from the age of say 9 or 10 years old. Philippe.
Yeah, I mean, the decision was taken apparently at a kind of family council. Which sounds crazy, but it's true. And at the beginning, his dad, who is a football coach, or was a football coach, was not necessarily that keen. He was not a super pushy kind of dad, as you meet so many in football, who all think that their 6-year-olds are the next best, super best thing. He was not quite like that. But this being said, he knew enough about football to realize that the talent was just exceptional. And I think at one point they decided, I don't think I know, at one point they decided with his consent that they would go all in for football. That's it. And then it became a job. So his dad took care of all the sporting decisions, like which club you're going to go to, keeping an eye on his training, all these sort of things. The mother would take care of the business, Faiza, and she is by far the most important person in the Mbappé organization. And then they thought, when they saw, and they were able to keep, all these agents at arm's length for a while. And when it came to, now we must sign a contract with a proper professional club, which was Monaco, then they brought in a lawyer, and not any lawyer, Delphine Verheyden, who is probably the best sports lawyer in France. I mean, she is incredibly sought after. She will only look after you if you're a very big name or you're a very, very interesting project. She's got it's a boutique practice. Only very, very, very few athletes work with her. And the type of athletes who work with her tend to be like multiple Olympic champions, world champions. I mean, really the absolute top of the top of the top. And he got her, or they got her to advise them when he was only 15 years old, which is crazy. But that tells you, again, how it was known everywhere in French football and outside French football that this boy had a talent, the like of which we hadn't seen for a very, very long time. So it's, it's a conjunction. When you work really hard on something, but you have also the skill and the talent to make it happen.
And this is a long-term project, because you mentioned Real Madrid showing an interest. Now, for people who don't know sort of Spanish football, or they don't know international sport, they go, okay, interest from Real Madrid at 15. Let's push the boy. That's game over. Real Madrid is a monster. Real Madrid eats players. For every Zidane, for every Zidane, for every Galactico, there are players. I mean, I'm just thinking Isco, who was a player from our part of the world down here on the Costa del Sol, Malaga player, went to Real Madrid, played okay, but nothing much happened. You think of even players like Michael Owen go to Real Madrid, and yeah, they're okay, but not brilliant, because Hazard, for example, went from Chelsea to Real Madrid, and the machine that is Real Madrid. It's such a leviathan that you have to be very, very special and very, very careful because of the politics that are involved. So it's a really good strategic move by Team Mbappé to hold him off, to go to Monaco, to build the brand, because Monaco has a name, and then go to Paris Saint-Germain. And again, so that Real Madrid are then desperate for him. And the world is desperate to see him wearing the blancos, yeah?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was thinking also the case of Martin Ødegaard, the Norwegian prodigy who arrived at Real Madrid when he was a young teenager, very young teenager, and he found it very difficult. And in the end, he had to leave Real Madrid to become the player who is now one of the key players in Arsenal Football Club. And in Mbappé's case, the progression it's really clever. It's that, okay, we don't want. We want a club that's going to take care of young players. And very importantly, we want clubs where he will be given playing time. That's the absolute basis of everything. So if he goes to Monaco, which is why he had, because the Monaco team in which he arrived at the beginning was not that fantastic, but very quickly, their owner, a Russian oligarch called Dmitry Rybolovlev, bought some very fine players, and Monaco became French champions. And Mbappé was part of the adventure, but at the beginning, it was a bit tough for him to find himself, to find a place in that team. But once he did it, the talent was such that he kept it. So you go to Monaco. Then is he going to go to Real Madrid from Monaco? No. It's not stupid. Too early, still too early. Why not go to Paris Saint-Germain? Down the road, also near his family again.
Yeah.
And he would also be guaranteed to play. He will stay in France, which is important. But he will be in a club that A, is going to win titles, and B, is going to be a perfect springboard for him to land the big one, because from the very beginning, the aim has always been to arrive at Real Madrid. But to arrive at Real Madrid as the king.
Yeah.
Not as somebody who is going to be, he might play, might not play. He's okay, he's doing all right. No, it's got to be number one all the time. That's the point. He's made it such in such a way that he always has had to be the number one wherever he went. He had to be the number one in Monaco, the number one Paris Saint-Germain, number one in the French national team, and number one now at Real Madrid.
But you see, now this is the thing, because he plays for the French national team, Les Bleus, and you've written a book about Eric Cantona. Now, Eric Cantona, again, international superstar, a man bigger than the game, okay? And his experience, shall we say, with the French national football team is almost opposite to Mbappé's experience, isn't it? That's like a cautionary tale, because Cantona is again a once in a generation maverick genius. The word being maverick genius. While Mbappé is a straight off genius that you want to perform, and he has his quirks, but he's certainly not the character, shall we say, or the unknown quantity that Cantona is when he comes to the national team.
Yeah, and absolutely, and completely different. I mean, I've written 2 books about the two.
Yeah.
And the book about Eric is very much a biography, because the man, the character, is absolutely fascinating, has got such depth, is so ambiguous, so contradictory, and the anecdotes are just phenomenal, because there are so many stories. Kylian Mbappé, whoever is going to write his biography, his proper biography as a player, is going to have a very, very hard time to make it interesting, because Kylian Mbappé is not interesting. He's fascinating because he's in control of what he does. He's in control of himself. He's done some amazing things. He's achieved some amazing things, and he's still very young. And he will achieve even more. Who knows how and he's become a familiar of President Macron at the Élysée Palace. That's not every player who does that. All these things. He's already a club owner at the age of 26, 27. I mean, but on the other hand, everything is so smooth.
Yeah.
There is no asperity. There is no sense of jeopardy, and which is the anti-Cantona. So the example you take is actually exactly the right one, just to have positive, negative of what it can be to be a great football player. And because Cantona is all about jeopardy all the time. It's about drama, crisis, everything, which is fantastic, which is what makes us, that's why, you're a racing fan.
Yeah.
That's why people were more Senna than Prost, basically.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you have the same thing. The people were more John McEnroe than Björn Borg, or they might be more Agassi than Sampras. So you could carry on like this.
Yeah.
Because we like asperity, we like jeopardy in our sporting heroes. When they are too, it becomes insipid, tasteless.
Yeah.
And the thing is that Kylian Mbappé is a very easy player to admire and respect and be wowed by because of what he does. But he's not, I've yet to meet anyone who has the same kind of emotional attachment to him as a fan as they would have to, say, Eric Cantona.
Yeah.
Precisely, or Zinedine Zidane. There is not at all the same kind of link, emotional link. People will go, wow, he's phenomenal, he's amazing, wow. And be struck by the star, be struck by the glitz and everything. But when it comes to actually feeling, I love my cricket, for example, right? Yes, I know. But people will have an incredibly strong attachment to Ben Stokes, for example.
Yeah.
Because he has got this incredible sense of drama, sense of jeopardy as well. And at the same time, he will achieve amazing things with the bat and the ball. Whereas there are other players, like Jack Callis in the old days, whom you really couldn't care at all about because they were just very good. Or Steve Smith today. Yeah. I don't care about Steve Smith at all. And nobody should, to be honest.
And here's the other thing, though, because, we live in a world now, when the Mbappé project started, there was no Instagram. There was no real social media.
That's right.
And sports stars weren't expected to make pronouncements on the world. But if you look after Black Lives Matter, if you look about the issue that, Vilnius Jr. has every time he gets on a Real Madrid shirt about racism, about where we are in, whatever your views are, Ukraine, Palestine, Sir Lewis Hamilton makes these comments as well. There's been Mbappé has steered the project has kept well clear of that, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he's made some pronouncements, but they've always been put in terms which were non-confrontational. Yeah. Like, for example, he has spoken out. He has to anyway. He's the captain now of the team. And he's captain of a team in which there are, the majority of players come from immigrant backgrounds in the football team. And sometimes some of these players feel very, very strongly about the political issues of their time. So he's got to take that into account. And, for example, he spoke out at the time of the French elections, and at which he very clearly positioned himself as somebody who was rejecting hatred. But he didn't name the Rassemblement National or Marine Le Pen by name, whereas some of his teammates, they didn't hesitate. Like Koundé didn't hesitate, didn't care about that. Marcus Thuram didn't care about that. They said Le Pen, they said Bardella, Rassemblement National, and so forth. Whereas he said we must reject extremes, basically, and he was giving the right message. And I suppose people will say, well, that's his role as a French captain. He cannot also become, a politician. But so he's done it, but he's done it in a very, very careful way, so that he wouldn't antagonize people.
But if you think about Les Bleus and Chirac at the Stade de France when they win the World Cup, I mean, it's the most cynical I've ever seen. But he's waving that flag, like he doesn't even know what sport was playing. It's politics, we said this is the new France. This is immigrants from all. This is the mix of, as I said at the beginning, the mix of the fabulous mix of nationalities, and it was used as a positive for France going into the it seems a lifetime ago now, but you understand what I'm saying. The politicians have used football in France, so it is understandable that he's going to say something like that because of the experience that young French men and women have. If they're not from that particular, if they're not if you like European French.
Yeah, I mean for example, his a relationship with Macron is absolutely fascinating. I mean, actually, I've written a whole chapter about it in the book because Macron, of course, is a centre-right. I mean, he's Macronist more than anything, but he's centre-right. he's never been endorsed by Kylian. But they're close enough for Macron to once have invited himself on a really very popular YouTube show with a couple of French influencers. Absolutely awful, by the way, they are. Really, really bad. They're really bad, but they're really popular. Anyway, he invited himself on this program, and he dialed Kylian Mbappe's number live, so to speak, and to talk to Kylian, and he put him on speakerphone. And the influencers were absolutely, I thought, wow, this is amazing. So it shows that the relationship goes a little bit beyond, the
superficial sort of
superficial, and also you got to remember those scenes when Macron, who is a genuine football fan, by the way, that is something that he's exploiting it to the hilt, but he's a genuine football fan and Marseille fan, as it happens. So the scenes in 2018, after the win in the World Cup, or 2022 when he goes down on the pitch and he tries to console Kylian after the defeat to Argentina in the final. There is a relationship here which is actually fascinating.
Philippe, I've got 10 seconds. 10 seconds.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I've got, because we're going to run out of time. The book is called The Mbappé Project. Philippe, thank you so much for your time today.